This trend would soon be broken. In 1959, Coach Lemons had recruited Gavin Hill from the small town of Rocky, Oklahoma, population 250.
So I was the first player out of tiny Rocky, Oklahoma to come to OCU, and then Abe wound up taking a total of 7 players out of Rocky on basketball scholarship at OCU, which is quite unique, and it wasn't just a gift because it was just they were pretty good players.
Yeah. Rocky's a little town, and some people say whenever you come into Rocky, there's a town that says you're entering Rocky, and as you go by it, on the backside it says you're leaving Rocky. That's just about how big it was.
In the high school, we had something like less than 50 total students, and half or less of those were boys. All the boys played basketball in the top 4 grades.
Actually, Coach Lemons had been coming down to watch our games, I think when I was a sophomore in high school. We had some pretty good basketball teams at Rocky, and I think he probably heard about them and started coming down there to visit and to watch me play.
In a small town like Rocky, you have 2 men that drive up in a black Lincoln with overcoats on and hats that are not cowboy hats. We did suspect they were from the mafia. Basketball was Gary's life. That was what we did.
He would come up here and practice all hours of the day and night, you know, after school was out. Even after he left here, he'd go home and he'd practice out in the yard, you know, on that old goal on the garage.
And I usually wore out about 2 basketballs a year there on the farm playing outside. And it just takes a lot of effort. And even when I came to college, you know, I put in extra time after practice and in the summertime. And just something that I really enjoyed doing, though, and it does take a lot of work and a lot of effort, and I've often thought about it that if I'd have gone to some other college, you know, I might not have achieved the personal recognition that I did here, mainly because of Abe and the type of game that we played.
Gary was one of the best all-around players I'd ever watched. Of course, he and Manuel came to OCU at the same time, and they were both high school All-Americans, one from Rocky and one from El Reno. Gary had the ability to completely run a ball club. He could not only shoot, he could handle the ball, he knew when to pass it, he knew what plays to run. He was a total and complete player.
He violated almost every rule that Hank Iva and Coach Parrick and the Big 8 had. He shot from long range, he shot when nobody was on the goal, but he was a pretty good assist man as well. He enhanced my game because if you picked for him and did your role, and your man took him, he'd get you the ball, you know.
I think Gary might have had the best all-around game of all the OCU guards. He was a peerless ball handler. He was a terrific penetrator. He knew how to play the game. He had a decent outside shot. I would say that Koper and Travis might have been better outside shooters, but he had the total game. He knew how to get the ball to the open man. He played tough defense. He was relentless from the opening tap till the game ended.
Like I say, we played from the 5th grade through, we even played 1 year pro ball together. I learned a lot from Gary. He was a better defensive ball player than I was, but he's also a great shooter, great, good rebounder for his size, 6'4", great team, very smart on the court.
His first varsity season, he averaged 12 points per game, but the following year, he upped that to 17 points. And the Chiefs set an Oklahoma scoring record by averaging over 82 points a game. By Gary Hill's senior year, the Chiefs were a much improved team, winning 19 games, and after a drought of 6 years, they were again invited to the NCAA tournament. Gary carried the team into the second round by scoring 9 of the last 11 points in their first-round win over Colorado State University.
And we went to Lubbock, Texas, and played Colorado State. And I mean, from everything we heard, they had already made reservations to go on up to the Sweet 16. And we wound up beating them. And if I remember right, I got in foul trouble and had to sit out a lot of the second half. And I think went in with a couple minutes to go and scored 5 points in the last minute. And anyway, he said I paid for my scholarship that game. Yeah.
Gary Hill completed his senior season leading the Chiefs in assists and averaged 21 points per game. He was selected in 1963 as an All-American. Gary was drafted in '63 by the San Francisco Warriors and played with Wilt Chamberlain. In 1964, his rookie year, the Warriors made it to the NBA Finals against the Boston Celtics and the legendary Bill Russell.
Gary Phillips down court for San Francisco. Over to Hill, number 12. Thurman, and into Chamberlain. The league's leading scorer banks it in there. His shot goes up and in.
Another outstanding player to come from Rocky, Oklahoma in 1962 was Bud Koper. He was a year behind Gary Hill and was an outstanding scorer.
Of course, I'm a farm boy, raised on the farm, and I was one of these kids that had a key to the gym that I'd go after get through working, and I'd spend all my time in the gym. And I only knew one way to do it, and that was hard, full time. I'd go practice 2 or 3 hours every day. And fortunately, Abe offered me a scholarship, and that's why I come here. Back then, as you know, we had a kitchen area where the moms cooked, made homemade food and pies and stuff like that. And he said, I just want to let you know that I'm really coming down here to eat the food, not necessarily to see you play, but while I'm here eating, I'll take a look at you or whatever. And
I was a freshman when Bud was a senior. By the time he was a senior, he was already a legend. And I'd never seen anyone shoot the ball from that range with that accuracy.
Best shooter I ever saw, college or pro. His range was almost limitless.
But Bud Koper was probably as good a pure shooter as anyone that I've ever seen. He was very quick. He could shoot jump shots from 15 to 20 feet to 25 to 30 to 35 feet. An incredible shot.
And he could shoot it from way out past the three-point line.